Thank you for tuning in to the first episode of the Forward Project. Today I'm honored to be joined by my brother, Corporal Jacob McDonald. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, no problem. It's good to be here.
So my first question is the question that I think every service member has been asked, and it sounds simplistic, but it's probably the most complicated question in my opinion, and that would simply be, why did you join the Marine Corps?
Why did I join the Marine Corps? For a bunch of different reasons. So, growing up, I grew up, I was a kid before 9/11. I was real young, and then I grew up in the War on Terror, and my biological father left my mom, and he joined the Army, and he did several deployments, and he retired a few years ago. He was an infantry guy, and then we have a big military family. So when my mom met my stepdad, I saw that he was a Marine, and growing up as a kid, I was just like fascinated by it, by weapons and technology and history, and I loved it. Like when I was a kid, I could name, tanks and machine guns and all kinds of stuff. I think also part of it was like growing up in a really patriotic time. So you could never turn on the news and not see something from Iraq and Afghanistan. So I think seeing people sacrifice a lot, on live television, was damn, people are out here dying and fighting, and they're doing it for each other, which is something I know now, but also for all of us. So I think I thought it would be selfish to not want to give back and selflessly serve, because we have all these freedoms, and we grow up free, and a small group of people volunteer to defend it and put everything that it means to be an American on the line. And I was like, damn, I want to be like that, so I can enjoy the rest of my life as a free American, and really give back. I think a big part of that too, when I was growing up, I think I wanted to join the Army instead of the Marines for a long time, until I was in middle school. But my stepdad, I saw how hard he worked all the time, and his work ethic, and no matter what it was, rain or shine, he was busting his ass at work and busting his ass at home. And that started to pull me in and attract me to it, as a Marine, because Marines are special. And growing up, learning more about the Marine Corps, you learn that it's the elite of the standard forces. And even as a kid, I knew that I wanted to do a combat job, and I wanted to be an infantry guy, because to me that was ultimate service, because you get nothing, expect nothing, live in the mud, going door to door. You don't have the best training, you don't have the best equipment, but being a Marine, it's all about mindset and mentality and aggression. And I think the reputation the Marine Corps has earned over its 250 years is something that was awe-inspiring to be a part of.
Absolutely. So what year did you enlist into the Marine Corps? What had been?
So the day I turned 17, I made my parents take me to the recruiting station, and they met my recruiter, and I signed the papers, for the delayed entry program. So I enlisted when I was 2017, and I wouldn't go to boot camp till 2018. It was just 2 or 3 months after graduation. I ended up leaving for Paris Island, July 18th or 19th, 2018.
Wow, so 7 years ago, and you can still remember the exact date. So that just tells you right there. I think everyone can almost remember their exact ship date for basic training or boot camp, depending on what branch you served in.
Yeah.
So what's that feeling like? You step onto the yellow footprints for the first time. You just get off the bus. What's going through your mind in those moments?
I remember I was really, really nervous. I was really scared, because it was the first time I had left home, and I'm with a bunch of strangers I had met at the airport, and then each stop, you meet more people, and you're all in like one big group, and it's like on a set schedule. So when you get to Parris Island or to the airport in South Carolina, they make sure that it's super early in the morning or it's really late at night. Right. It's always dark.
Yep.
And when the buses pick you up, there's drill instructors there that ride the bus with you, and they're the nice drill instructors. They're the ones that they're not like fucking with you. They're not putting their hands on you. They get you on the bus. They herd you like cattle, and you don't know, you're 17, 18 years old, and you don't know your ass from your elbow, and they're screaming all these instructions at you, and you've got to understand really quickly and think about what they're saying, and just move. And that's all you can do is just try to keep up, and just know you won't quit. But for me, it was never a thing about quitting. It was the fog of the first time getting there, and you get off the bus and you stand on the yellow footprints. I think in my head maybe I thought it was going to be some badass moment where it's history's made, but I was so focused on the next task ahead and getting through the night. When I stood there, I never stood there again. That's the only time. And then you go in and you start your
processing. And something that's very similar between the Marine Corps and the Army's processing is that you're awake for the first 72 hours almost. So it really feels like a blur, at least in my experience. I don't know if it was similar for you, but it's very, like you said, the fog. I think that's a great way to describe it. You're focused on the next thing, and everything that you thought you knew coming into it, I think gets thrown out the window pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's basically like a tool the Marine Corps uses. It's the fog of war. It's controlled chaos. It's friction. It's pressure through intensity and violence of action, not knowing what's coming next, keeping you in the dark on purpose, making you tired, really trying to see who wants to be there and who doesn't, and who can deal with all of the things going on around them. And nobody's going to deal with it really well, but the ones who succeed and the ones who thrive, I think I definitely did, is just learning how to compartmentalize all of the stress. And you can't think about getting yelled at or getting PT'd in 2 hours. Right now you need to focus on making your bed right, or shining your shoes, or cleaning up your uniform. And it's that everything about the Marine Corps is applied to combat, but not in a direct way. So learning how to compartmentalize stress and tasks is an essential thing that you need in combat, and in combat leadership more importantly. And the Marine Corps, what it tries to do in Marine Corps basic training and recruit training is they're trying to build good citizens first. They're taking people off the street and they're stripping their identity and what they know, all their bad habits and all this other stuff, and they're turning them all into the same uniform United States Marine, no matter what race or ethnicity or skin color. And to do that, you have to break people down, and then you have to build people up. And it's a lot about ethics, moral values, leadership principles, but all those things also apply to combat, because it's you have to be true to your word, and you have to have integrity, and you have to understand that your actions have second and third order effects, and by not doing the right thing, even if nobody's looking, you jeopardize your integrity, but also you put other people at risk. So it's a lot of the things: attention to detail, cleanliness, being in the right place at the right time. All that stuff is super important from a top-down skill. If you want to learn how to become one of our nation's best warriors and an elite warrior in the eyes of the world, it starts with the simple things, learning how to lace up your boots.
Absolutely. Right place, right uniform, right time. That's 3 wins right there. So you graduate boot camp, and as you mentioned earlier, you're an infantryman. So you go to infantry school. At the time, how long was infantry school in the Marine Corps?
I can't remember exactly. It was my infantry school was probably about 10 weeks. It was about 3 months. It's pretty long, but it's basically set up so where everything you do in the Marine Corps, like it just gets harder.
Yep.
Or like when you graduate boot camp, you're like on top of the world, and then you get a week off. You know, come home and you feel like this, big dog. You just graduated boot camp, but then
You can tell you're different from everybody else.
yeah, you're definitely different, and you're like elated, and you've done something great for yourself. But all the higher leadership and like your drill instructors will tell you like that's not shit. Like you gotta go. Now you gotta go check into infantry school, and now you're gonna get your ass kicked in a different way for another 10 weeks, 3 months, and it's gonna be harder. It's going to be physically more demanding, mentally more demanding than Marine Corps recruit training is. And Marine Corps recruit training is the hardest standardized training there is for entry level for any branch, and it still is. And when I found out that it was going to be a lot harder, I mean, I already suspected, what to expect from, my stepdad, who was a machine gunner.
Yeah,
But yeah, it was infantry school was long, and it was a lot harder than boot camp.
Absolutely. So correct me if I'm wrong. When you first you enlisted under what's called a 0300 contract, correct? You don't sign 0311. You sign like regular infantry. So when you show up to infantry school, all you know that you're going to be infantry, correct? You don't know actually what job they're going to give you yet.
Yeah, that's right. So in the Marine Corps, you sign on to your job field, so you can, if you want to be an infantry guy, even if you want to be if you even know you want to be a machine gunner or a mortarman, which not everybody did. I knew what I wanted to be. It's not guaranteed. When you get to infantry school, they separate you by your general technical score from your ASVAB. And the highest ones get the first pick of the jobs they want to do. So if they want to be assaultman, 0351, or anti-tank missileman, 0352, machine gunner, 0331, or mortarman, 0341. And then whoever wants to be a rifleman, cool, and then all the leftovers go to the rifle platoons, and they go to rifle training units. Yeah. But when I showed up, I was in a machine gun class, because I want to be a machine gunner like my dad was.
Mm-hmm. So what's your opinion on them? They take your GT score from your SFAB, but that's, at least in my mind, I'd think that's a very, not a great standard, because you're a completely different person than the person you were when you took your SFAB. You just went through your first 13 weeks of training, and now you're about to continue on your next 10. You're not the same person. Your GT score, in my mind, shouldn't determine what career you're going to have for the rest of your career. And, but I will say 0311 is always considered the most honorable job in the Marine Corps. So what would you say to somebody who maybe uses grunt in a derogative way?
I'd say a lot of things, but grunt's a compliment, because for us, being called a grunt means you can handle it, you can take it. Any weight, any burden, any task, you can carry it out. Because being a grunt it's not like the movies and whatever, especially as a Marine. People always make jokes that, it's like at school and stuff, I'm going to W&J.
Crayon eater.
Yeah, and people always say, well, Marines are dumb. Infantry guys are dumb. All you got to know is how to shoot and how to be strong and carry weight and stuff. And it's like, no, you got to know so much shit. Yeah. You got to know, especially if you want to be a good infantryman and a good combat leader. Like, for me, my analogy was that I wanted to be a multi-tool, so I wanted to know how to do everything. So I went to courses for combat trauma medicine. I went to some advanced courses for that, infantry radio operation, and I carried around little cheat sheets for everything. I could call in 9 lines and do whatever. I went to primers for JTAC courses, learning how to call in bombs and rockets from airplanes and helicopters. I could run any radio. I knew the exact specifications and weight and dimensions of supporting assets like LAVs, AAVs, Abrams main battle tanks capabilities, top speeds. And then that's not even in my own field. In my own field, you had to know everything: arming distances, weights, ranges, point target, area target. You have to be so intelligent, and you have to study tactics and doctrine, and also history and tradition and standards.
Learn what works, what doesn't.
And that's the thing that separates like a good infantryman from a bad infantryman. A good one wants to go and learn more. I would hang out with the EOD guys, and I would get certified on CMD training and IUD training and all these other things. There's things that add force, you know, what we call like a force multiplier. So when if you take one guy and you teach him how to do 50 things and he knows how to do them really well, that one guy can do a lot. He can add more capabilities to your unit. So all of a sudden your squad can now call in bombs, rockets, artillery. You can do advanced combat medicine if you don't have a corpsman on standby. And then you get 30 guys doing that, a whole platoon doing that. Then you get a company and a battalion, and all of a sudden you have this unit that is like Marines of fame and of Marines of old. Of these Marines are unstoppable. They can do everything with seemingly nothing. And that's kind of like what we were. You want to be a multi-tool.
And I know I'll probably piss off a lot of people when I say this, but in my mind, there's combat arms and there's everybody else. And that's why everybody else falls under that support category, because the military understands that these guys are the most important men and women in their branch, and they provide the fight, but they do a lot more, as you said. They have so much to think about. So you graduate infantry school, and you hit the fleet. What was the first unit that you get assigned to after infantry school?
The first unit I checked into was Gulf Company, 2nd Platoon, 2nd Battalion, 8th Marine Regiment, America's Battalion, on Camp Lejeune, North Carolina.
And how long were you with them before you go out on your first MEU?
I came in after the workup had already started, so I think I missed the start of the workup by like 2 months, which a workup is just getting ready to deploy.
Yeah.
But since it was a MEU workup, it was a long process, so I don't think I deployed for another almost full year until I got to my unit, until after I got to my unit, that is. So it was a long time.
Do you think that provided you with a great deal of experience, whereas maybe some of the boots, as you would, maybe who just hit 2.8 right before the MEU?
Yeah, I think it's definitely, like, I envied when I showed up the guys who had shown up, 2 months before me, with the other boots who were a little older. Boots is what we call the new guys. Yeah. Because you learn so much just from being there, but the way your seniors operate and the way they do things is honestly, it's tough. It's tougher than infantry school. Like I said, everything gets harder, and just simply the fact that you're not going to learn any advanced stuff, like not at first. Like, it's going to take months. You got to build trust, because they're going to be hard on you, like physically hard on you, mentally hard on you. The PTs are going to be hard. You're going to get treated like dirt. Like, you're doing everything. You better not complain. No moaning. You have to be smarter. You have to be stronger every day. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are. You have to prove yourself as a new guy. And when you're 18, 19 years old, that's tough, because these people, they seem like they're the most evil, scary people in the world, and they're only, outside the military, it's hard to understand. They're only like 20, 21, 22 years old.
Trusted with such a high leadership position.
Yeah, and like some of my squad leaders and stuff that were, young guys in Afghanistan and whatnot, they were like old men to me, and they were like 27 at most. And so, they're mean, they're tough, they're all, 6'4", bulletproof, jacked, and it's like you feel like a little beat dog around them. They do treat you like absolute garbage, but there's a payoff. So.
And there's a method to it too. There's a reason they're treating you like that. They got treated the exact same way by their seniors. Their seniors were probably early GWAT guys, like Dad's generation, and now here they are in that position. So what's that first meal like? Places you go, maybe other forces you train with. That's always an interesting one, in my opinion.
Yeah, so my first MEU was a really interesting one. So it was supposed to be a peacetime float. We were supposed to sail from North Carolina over to the Mediterranean and train in Africa, and then get off in Europe and do a bunch of fun stuff there. But it didn't really happen. So we actually ended up going to support Operation Inherent Resolve in the CENTCOM area of operations, supporting basically what the War on Terror had become at that point, which was basically fighting the remnants of ISIS and like Hezbollah cells. Well, we didn't know that when we left. There was suspicion that we were going to be doing more, and I remember everybody was excited and
Yeah.
a little bit nervous, just to, because you were going to get tested. But I remember it wasn't official, so I was with Sergeant Newman. We were building this class for the Moroccan Marines. We're going to train them on all of our weapon systems at a platoon level. And I remember we had everything ready and we were supposed to murder board the class, so basically present it in front of like the company commander and our platoon leader and a few other people. But then we all got called to the flight deck. I remember the day we were supposed to leave, called everybody to the flight deck. They canceled our birds, so we went up there. And I'll never forget Major During telling us that like things had changed, in the geopolitical realm, and we're on a warpath is like what he told us basically. And we had this big meet. We had everybody on the flight deck of our ship. I was on the USS Oak Hill, LSD 51 at the time, and we were on the helicopter flight deck. And things like the tone and the mood got serious, and we all looked at each other. I remember my seniors looked at me and they started shaking their head, and I was like, yeah, this is it. Like this is what it feels like to be a Marine.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, you grew up during, I guess you could say the heart of the global war on terror, and you saw those ads, of Marines, of Rangers, of Army infantrymen, laying the hay, and now you, like, you are about to be sent into that theater where it's that little you could only dream, and so did you work with any foreign allies like?
Yeah, for this first deployment, a little less so. But they were always either training with like assets around us, or they were in and around our area. So like going to the Middle East through the Suez, like the Egyptians were providing air support for us. There was Egyptian like helicopters and gunships and stuff. We had Egyptian pilots on board to help us through the Suez. The Kuwaitis, especially Saudi Arabia, worked with them. But basically, they were just trying to send us, after we heard all about this, all our plans changed, training changed, and now we were focusing a lot on like detainee handling, a lot more like martial arts and grappling and combatives training, a lot more shooting for close quarters type stuff, which we had done all this stuff before, but now it was like every day we're doing that stuff every night. Of course, like we were surrounded by friendly forces in the area in the Middle East. There's a lot of friendly countries, but also we got harassed constantly by Hezbollah and the Houthis and like different cells like that. Some ships, not in our fleet, got anti-ship missiles fired at them. And then they do this all the time. Like I had a buddy who was just over there. They fired an anti-ship missile at him, and apparently they intercepted it. But yeah, there was a lot of tension going to and from, and of course we couldn't tell anybody where we were going or what we were doing. No pictures and whatnot. And I don't think I ended up talking to my family I talked to them maybe one time on the way there, and I think it was like another month or two before I could even get the opportunity to say anything, because the Navy basically jams internet and communications, and you don't have cell service anyway in the ocean.
So you return from your first MEU. What happens after that? When you get back, stateside.
So I got back from my first deployment, and we all go on like a leave period. So I was waiting to go on leave. And I think the stress of the deployment and a lot of stuff that had happened on deployment, nothing like super crazy. I think people were left with like weird feelings and stuff where it was like it was kinetic and it was supporting like a major combat operation, but we didn't get to do the things you thought you were going to do, and it wasn't like the movies, and it wasn't like the guys who came before you. And but at the same time, you did do a lot of stuff, and you supported a lot of big operations. And you find out that in modern wartime, if it's not a peer-on-peer threat, when it's just like Houthi and Hezbollah cells, you know, you're not going to be doing that patrolling, trigger pulling type operation every day, all day. Like the most excitement there could be is like IDF and accidents and other stuff happening, and then you've got buddies, you know, that get rocketed and mortared and stuff, and it's frustrating because you can't be there, and all you can do is hear about it. So coming home was interesting. People were, you know, let loose. I remember we had this big. It was like a big party where everybody in the whole battalion. It was like it was insane.
Yeah.
It was just like like hundreds of drunk Marines just destroying things. Like there's a dumpster like on fire.
Yeah.
People are like swimming in the swamps and like it's just nuts. People were letting off a lot of stress and anxieties and stuff, but you could tell like from the situations that had happened on the deployment and like some of the stressors on people that it was really like there had been a mark, and I think people were like you could tell people acted a little differently coming back, and now you're the senior guys, so now you have to like shift focus to like okay, who's gonna do what, like who's our best guys, and you know who's gonna be the squad leaders, who's gonna be the team leaders, what schools are you going to, because you know you get a couple weeks to kind of relax and come down, but ultimately the Marine Corps, you know, says it's time to get back to work because there's more deployments to do and more stuff that needs done. And it's like, you know, it's frustrating when you're that young, but you understand eventually that it's like the world doesn't revolve around you.
Yeah.
And you know, maybe it would help with like some of the mental health stuff, but you just gotta, the best thing for mental health the Marine Corps can do really is just put people back to work.
Yeah,
and
keep them busy.
Keep them busy, because when you're in your downtime and you've got time to lull, you could tell people are, you know, myself included, drinking a lot, and you're not thinking of the best things. And then, you know, unfortunately we had people, I remember we went on leave, people like, we had suicides and people had died while we were on deployment. There was like a weird situation that had happened where a couple people died, and so we just, you know, it starts to add up.
Yeah, absolutely. So how long are you back stateside before you go out on your second deployment?
Quite a while.
Yeah.
So I got back in the summer of 2020 from my first deployment. It was a really long one. It ended up being like with ship guard. It ended up being like almost like 9 months and some change, because I know we were on ship guarding it before, or maybe this was after. I'm not quite certain anymore, but it was a long deployment, and it was very stressful and very kinetic and whatnot, and some of the things that were happening, but also a lot of boredom and all that associated. But
yeah,
you know, when we get back, like I said, we took leave, and then for the next year and some change, we trained up for second deployment, which was from the get-go a peacetime deployment to Okinawa, Japan, and maybe some other areas in the Pacific, mainland Japan, to go train with the Japanese. And
that would be a cool experience, I'd imagine. Was how did you find their training? Did you think that, you know, if another conflict is to arise soon, that they'd be able to be by our side just as well, or did you think, you know, maybe damn, these guys are pretty ate up, or what was your?
The Japanese, so we did Resolute Dragon, which was a big training exercise, and they filmed a lot of it. Yeah. And that was a big deal because we were getting ready for China.
Yeah.
And we were trying to express to the Japanese like the things that need to happen to be ready to fight appear like China.
Yeah.
Japan technologically and like in terms of manpower, they have the capabilities to outmatch China. 'Cause
Yeah.
Japan is modern, very modern military. But what I noticed in training was that they would, like, we would have a squad on patrol doing force on force training, and if they ambushed a platoon or more of Japanese troops, most of them would surrender.
They
And it's
didn't
like, yeah, they wouldn't put up a fight.
yeah, and they
They
didn't have
would
that
just give
mindset.
up. And like, it's hard to fault them for that because they haven't fought a conflict since World War II, and that was a
Yeah.
completely different Japan. But the United States were very much winners, and we have a warrior mentality and
Yeah.
a warrior spirit. So especially in the Marine Corps, like, surrender is not a thing. Like, Marines don't surrender.
Yeah.
Because that shames us all in combat. We fight to the end, and if we win, good. But if not, we're not gonna make it out of there. We're not gonna give up and surrender. There's always a way out. I think that's the mentality we have that they don't. Is like, even if you have nothing, you'll find a way to fight like hell and make it. Either you'll fight and win, or you'll die. And honestly, that's the way of the warrior, and they don't really have that.
And I mean, the U.S. Marine Corps, they exemplify that, I think, better than anybody else in the world. I mean, the only Marine unit who ever even had a glimpse of surrendering, they are not even allowed to fly their colors stateside now. So that just shows, how much pride the Marine Corps takes in their mindset, because they are, from what I've heard, what I've seen, they are the only, fighting force who does that, So, how long was that second deployment?
The second deployment, I think it was like right about 6 months, maybe a little more, because of travel time and lull time and all that. It was pretty much like just being in garrison, which is the term we use just for being like on base.
Yeah.
Like, it was like being, like on base in Camp Lejeune in North Carolina, but in a foreign country in Okinawa, and it was really interesting. We kept up with the training and whatnot. COVID was going around at this time, so there were things that, like, we couldn't do sometimes, but the Marine Corps always finds a way to get past it a little bit, even if it technically isn't supposed to. We developed like new tactics and strategies and plans, contingency plans for if a war did break out while we were there. Some new training standards, for example, like we were testing and trialing out the 2nd Marine Division new fitness standards for infantry guys. So it was like it was kind of modeled after the Rangers PT test, like the 75th Ranger Regiment. So we had to do a 5-mile run instead of a 3-mile run.
Yeah.
And then you had to do it like all back to back pretty much. So you did you did your 5-mile run, and you had to do it under 45 minutes. If not, you failed. You had to do a 500-meter swim under 10 minutes, or 12, I believe it was. And then also there was a hump, so a ruck, which the Marine Corps does differently from the Army. So in the Marine Corps, it's usually a lot heavier. You're in full gear, and then when you ruck, you do it in a formation. So you basically are in a column, and you ruck that way. So it's like a kind of an agonizing pace. It's supposed to be torturous, is the point of it, because it builds physical and mental discipline. It's like walking on a treadmill, but instead you've got like 130 pounds total on you and a weapon, and you're going at the pace of a guy who's either going too fast or too slow.
Yeah.
And there's people slinking the line because they're not keeping up.
Yep. I know at basic training, of course, the rucks are group, and that's always the worst thing. Especially if you're a shorter guy, it's slinking, these legs, it's very bad. They always tell you if you have a rucksack on, it's very bad to start taking extended strides. It's terrible on your hips. Worse than, it already is bad on your hips. But, so, you get back from that second deployment. Is there anything different when you go back to your unit compared to your first deployment? Like,
yeah, I mean, so in between my first and second deployment, I forgot to bring up, I got moved to Fox Company, 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines. So the way it is each battalion has 3 rifle companies. I started my life in the fleet in Golf Company 28, and which is a rifle company. You know, and then I got back and I got moved to Fox. And the really big difference between the companies is like personality. So Fox Company, they were the guys who were training with MARSOC and Recon, and it was mostly because they were Helo Company. So they basically, on a big operational level, they would ride around on Helos, so Ospreys, CH-53s, all that stuff. And when I was in Golf Company, we were in Amtracs, so amphibious tanks, transports. So getting to Fox before my second deployment and doing the workup with them was really interesting. And I was surrounded, I went with a couple other guys from Golf, but I was mostly surrounded by new people. And they had different ways of doing things, and they had a whole different, like, personality to them. I would say it was like, you know, it was like Golf Company had guys who were super cunning and super tactically proficient, and of course in Fox they were all tactically proficient, but they had this more of like a flair and a style to them. Like they were all gearheads, like I was. Like they loved customizing their gear and, you know, kind of pushing the limits of like what is actually allowed and what's not allowed for your personal equipment. And they were more like high speed, and like rightfully so, because with them we trained with MARSOC guys a lot and some recon guys, and that was a good opportunity for me. But when I showed up the Fox Company, I immediately said this is like my opportunity here, because in Golf I got passed over for advanced infantry school. So did a few of my buddies the first go around. So when I got to Fox, I was like, okay, like I'm gonna be a team leader here. And there was a guy, Kendall was his name. He was hurt. He had bad knees. My knees were jacked up. My back got jacked up on my first deployment, but I was just kind of ignoring it. And I remember I was in like this sports, like combat rehabilitation therapy for my knees and like my feet and stuff. And I remember I dropped out of that early because I took his team leader position, and we were about to go to 29 Palms for live fire training, and a bunch of advanced level training, and I did not want to miss it. And I took this guy's team, and I just hit the ground running when I got to Fox.
So was there any similarities you saw from Golf Company where you said the mission was more amphibious oriented, whereas Fox Company, the mission was, you know, helo oriented?
No, because you all operate in conjunction with each other, and the idea is that organization, like in terms of amphibious assault vehicles or helos, is just how you get from the ships to the beach, and from there, you know, you may take those things as rides that are attached to you, but you're all operating the same. You know, you're all infantry companies. You're in an infantry squad, infantry platoon. The basic tactics are the same and the fundamentals, so there's no difficulty just integrating into a helo company. You spend a lot more time on helicopters, and like whatever you didn't know, you got up to speed with some of the senior guys that were there, or like some of the guys who were your peers who are now also seniors, and you just get to know everybody. And I met like some of the coolest dudes in Fox Company. I remember Blackstock and Navarro and Palizzi, Rush, like just a bunch of really cool dudes, honestly, I met in Fox, and they were like my best friends, and it was quick too.
To kind of, not to wrap things up quite yet, but so you ETS out of the Marine Corps, and you're now you're currently utilizing the GI Bill at Washington Jefferson College. So the whole point of this podcast is to raise awareness. So I want, for closing statements, I was gonna wonder, what would you say to someone, a Marine specifically, or I guess anybody in any branch, who's getting out soon and they just feel lost? You found your way, and many people say it, but it's the hardest thing they do is ending a military career and finding their way. What would you tell somebody who just, they know they're done with the military, but they don't know what's next?
Oh, man. So, if I had to tell another Marine who was about to get out what some advice on finding his path, it's tough because I still feel super lost most days. Going to school and using my post 9/11 GI Bill has helped me do something with my time, because at least, even if I'm biding my time and trying to see what I want to do in the future, at least I'm getting, education, and I'll have a degree. And I've done really well in school, and I have liked school. I'm a senior now, but I think I'm still lost most days. It's I find myself missing the military, but I know I had to get out of the Marine Corps because not only was I injured, but also at the time of my end of my service in the Marine Corps, the wars were over, and when your job is to fight wars as an infantry guy, I felt like it was almost selfish to stay in and be like, man, I hope there's a war, when our country had been at war for over 20 years.
It's the longest war in American history. A lot of people don't realize that.
I think what a lot of guys miss is not just like deployment life itself, but I think they miss like the brotherhood and the camaraderie.
Yeah.
And that's tough to find. You're not really going to find it out in the civilian world like that, because you're not going to have a bunch of brothers that you can just like tell anything to or talk to whenever you want. And
who would lay everything for you and you him.
Somebody you can trust literally with your life.
Yeah.
And you're like the bestest, most close friends. Like you're literally brothers without that blood connection. And I still talk to the guys as much as I can from golf and Fox Company. And a lot of my buddies stayed in. Honestly, I don't wish I stayed in, but I've been trying to find ways to crack the niche a little bit, and try to join the Pennsylvania National Guard, which I'm still waiting to hear about, or maybe even looking into service like in the Ukrainian International Legion after I graduate, if the Guard doesn't work out. But I'm still looking, I think, to find that brotherhood and that camaraderie. And overall, I think if you're going to miss the job, like I do, like I miss being an infantry guy. I loved it. I loved the Marine Corps. I loved what I did as a job. I loved everything about it, even the really crappy stuff. But my biggest piece of advice is probably to get hobbies and try to find ways to fill your time and keep yourself busy, because whether or not you have good mental health or not, it keeps you occupied, keeps your hands busy. Make sure you work out. If you have education benefits, use them. And you don't have to go to like a big school. You can do online school. You can go get go learn a trade, learn how to weld. I've worked a lot of different jobs, since I've been out. And I think eventually time heals all things, and I think you will find your path and your purpose. And I know for a lot of guys, it's family. I think family is a big thing for them. So like a lot of my buddies that had kids or they're married, I think for them that's their like camaraderie, and that's their purpose, is like taking care of their family. And if you feel like you can do more, if you want to go back into the military, you're never too old to do that. So you get out and you want to go to school and use your benefits that you earned, go back in. Nothing's going to stop you, because you're an asset now. Be an asset to your community. Do everything that you can for those around you, and really just try to take the lessons you learned in the military and really focus on the intangible things. Like, things become a lot easier when you realize that all I have to do is wake up and try my best, and that's all the civilian world asks of you. But if you realize that you're not living in the mud anymore, you're not hungry, you're not scared, you're not tired, you're not just completely fatigued like from head to toe anymore, you're not hiking 20 miles a day with 150 pounds on your back, and your life isn't in mortal danger day to day, you realize that you can really contribute a lot to people, because you realize that not everybody is as resilient, not everybody has the work ethic or the motivation to really apply themselves in daily life, and you can really just be a source of inspiration for people. I mean, a lot of my professors like sing me praise about the simplest things, and I don't really understand it, but a lot of people are lost themselves, and I think if you help other people and just show up every day and just try to be a good person and try to really use the skills the military taught you, like they made you a Marine, and now it's time to like take that and move forward. I think you'll be well off.
Wow. Well, I do sincerely hope that if somebody is listening who's soon to get out, that that they really take that to heart, because that was a great message.
I also have to say too is like no matter what happened in your service, like it doesn't define you.
Yeah.
What you can use though is like take what you were and be something more, and it's tough. And there's nothing wrong with reminiscing on like what you were and what you did, and you're gonna think, man, I didn't take enough pictures, and man, I used to be, such a badass. Dude, you still are. You're still the same person. Like that's something I struggle with sometimes. Is like, man, I feel like out of place. Like all the students at W&J, like they're all younger than me. I don't feel like I quite fit in. I used to be, a door kicker, and I used to be so badass. And it's like, dude, you're the same person. Like one of my buddy Spiegel I served with, he told me that one time. I messaged him about something, and he was like, bro, we're the same guys. He's like, we did all that. And he's like, that's us. And I was like, dude, that's awesome. And like, I'll never forget that. But also, if you're getting out, go get your benefits. Like, it took me years because of guilt and a little bit of shame.
Yeah.
To like go get my veterans benefits, and dude, it's like they owe you those benefits.
Yeah.
Don't feel guilty about going and saying like, I need help or I want my benefits. Like you earned it. Like, do it for the people who who didn't come home. There's a lot of people who wish they could get their benefits. A lot of people who wish they could have got their GI Bill to go to school and like, or go to learn how to weld or do a trade. And like, you get that opportunity, and like, you get the opportunity to be around your family and your friends every day, and a lot of guys don't. And so use it. Stay mentally sharp, stay physically fit, maintain those standards in your head, but don't be too hard on yourself, and just try to be an asset to the people around you.
Wow. So my final question is almost to the contrary of that. What would you tell somebody who's maybe a 17-year-old Jacob right now, a kid who's seriously considering enlisting into the United States Marine Corps? What advice would you give them?
I think if I had to give advice to somebody who is about to sign up and do their time, I would honestly try to tell them all the terrible things that could happen to them and their friends, and every reason not to.
Yeah.
But if that kid was anything like me, he would look at me and be like, yeah, but here's X, Y, and Z reasons why I'm still going to do it.
Absolutely.
And if you tell me I'm not going to do it or I can't do it, I'm going to show up and I'm going to prove that I can do it. And if he's anything like me, then I know he's cut for the right cloth.
Yeah.
Because in boot camp in the Marine Corps, they're going to break you down, and they're going to break you down to the smallest little cell, and they're going to try to tell you the worst things about you, about your life, and try to get you to quit. And if nobody can get you to quit because you're so motivated and you believe in something with a very fibrous, tangible reason, then nothing's going to stop you. Like, you have to find a bigger purpose. That's why when I was in the Marine Corps, I tell my guys, like I don't ever quit, because there's always a fight. You can always fight harder. Yeah. You can always find a way to win with enough motivation and enough violence and fiber of the soul that nothing can ever beat you down. Like, my reasons for joining are so solidified, and it goes way beyond education benefits or money. I didn't care about any of that. I cared about being a Marine. Is like, that's why I'm here. Like, that's my fighting spirit and that's my fire. Like, you can't turn that off. Like, I'm not gonna quit. Like, on a run, on a hike, no matter how cold I am, how scared, hungry, wet I am, I don't care. I'm not quitting. I'm gonna fight like hell. And when you find that purpose and that drive in you, there's nobody who's ever gonna make you quit. The only person who can make you quit is yourself. So that's probably a little talk I'd have to that kid.
Well, I want to say thank you for agreeing to do this, and it was very interesting. Even as your own little brother, there was things I learned there, you know, and I do think it's a very interesting story, and my biggest hope, my biggest takeaway from the episode, is that I do hope that your message there at the end could seriously help, because that's something that doesn't get talked about enough is people entering the civilian life, after being such a high speed. I think that's something that needs to be brought up more, and I do really hope that it finds its way to the right people.
Yeah, I was happy to be here, and I didn't have the preparation time, I think, to deliver, so I hope my answers are pretty good.
I thought they were.
Next time I can maybe have a little think about what the questions are going to be, because I feel like I skipped around a little bit, but I'm hoping that some of the information was legible and understandable. And yeah, I'm a very quiet person, so my little brother is the one doing the interview, and he probably didn't hear me talk about a lot of this stuff. I didn't go super nitty gritty or anything.
Yeah, no.
That can be for another time, perhaps. But
yeah.
Like I said, it was a roller coaster, in the Marine Corps, and it was like the highest highs and the lowest lows. So the worst days of my life, mentally, physically, but also like some of the best memories and moments I'll ever tell anybody. And I got to travel to like 26 different countries and see the world and carry a rifle for my country, and it was the greatest thing I could ever do with my life. It was the best job I ever had, probably ever will have, but we'll see. I'm still forging my path. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do, whether it involves carrying a rifle again or not, I don't know. But yeah, so for everybody listening, I hope you enjoyed Semper Fidelis. Thank you.